Yeah, right there is where I...
If you want, let's listen to it from the top and make sure.
I'm the top of this relationship.
Like all that like real basic metal shit. But like at a certain point I realized that it's not about the chord. It's not about the chords. If you try and go after the chords that other metal guys use, you're just gonna sound like other metal guys. If you want to play metal that's unique but isn't curtailed and restricted by those boundaries that people call metal, use other chords that they don't use. Use happier sounding chords. Use really disgusting dirty chords that they only use in death metal, but play them in a punk rock style, and then you have Converge and shit like that. That's how those bands were able to break those molds.
That's what I love.
Before Shutter was even a thing, before we had music out, I always had this like saying, like when I was thinking about how the band would be like a thing, I thought like a band in your mind, you know, to kind of reach a point of higher elevation, you tend to have to abandon your mind, because a lot of times we have to realize that there's otherworldly powers at work and we're just a small aspect of it. And I think abandoning your mind is just about putting yourself in a different perspective or realistically escaping.
This album's gonna be like our album, you know what I'm saying? Like
one place that's easy to fill. Think about your actual fan base, the date that you're choosing, how many people are actually going to come. Remember, if you set up a Facebook event and 90 people say they're coming, 9 people are coming.
This album was different because we wanted to take a completely alternative take on what we did before. We've been trying to convey a really spacious kind of psychedelic meaning. We took a lot of the things that we love and we tried to do our own thing. Like, it's different in the sense that we actually took time to write these songs. It wasn't just a bunch of riffs that we put together, and that's really, you know, what kind of divided us. We had to write one song after another. It's like a book, you know, you start from beginning and then eventually you get to the end. And before it wasn't like that. It was just a bunch of songs that we really liked with a bunch of riffs that we really liked. You know, we had 100+ songs that we really wanted to work with, 100+ riffs that we really wanted to work with, but it's not like all of it was relevant enough to make it on there as a story. Read today, take it easy today, grind tomorrow. Tomorrow we gotta be here on time.
Well, yeah. And I don't have.
And we'll all be set up, so there's
today,
no like, oh, dude, to get everything set up and get here on time, you must have had to wake up at 6 a.m.
Dude, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Recording this album compared to the other 2 EPs we've done was just, we recorded in a new place. So the last 2 albums the last 2 EPs we recorded somewhere else, and the whole process was different. You know, guitar and bass was done before drums even were a thought. So the fact that drums were done first and then we had guitars go in and do, you know, and record to the drums just made, I think made everyone's lives a lot easier. You know, when we were all together, we never really were all together in the studio before this, so that was something that's different, and also I think really helpful when it comes to drum and guitar days, at least, because everybody can kind of put in their own feedback.
Okay.
On Sunday?
We'll get together Saturday and go over the songs. We could do most of the songs. It's super easy to pull off, like, especially because we're gonna be doing new ones and shit. Like,
I'm not worried. I know basket case.
For recording, I kind of like to just kind of sit with myself. I mean, Johnny and Zach went into the studio before I even started and recorded scratch tracks for me, so I was able to practice, you know, before I went into the studio. I don't really like going in blind. It's just a lot more pressure that way, but once I have an idea in my head, it's really easy for me to kind of, you know, lay it out.
Remember, this is just another practice. This is another day playing the song that you played a bunch of times before.
Right.
You know the song, you got this, you're gonna make mistakes, don't stress those mistakes. It's not a big deal.
Coming up with drum parts for me, I'm really lucky because I kind of get to do what I please.
Right there. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna hear it, and then right when that part comes in, that's when I'm gonna.
Yeah, you can start playing before then.
Okay.
But I'm just letting you know that's when it's automatically gonna kick into recording.
Okay.
So if you start playing before then, it'll be a seamless into it. It'll sound like.
Okay. Okay. Sure. All right. Cool.
They all trust me doing what I think sounds best, and you know, sure, there's definitely input on when they think something should change, but I do have a nice freedom to kind of do what I think sounds best. A lot of people think that you can just go into studio and then do everything in one shot, but that is not true. We did almost all the songs at least 4 times just to get them, you know, as close to perfect as they can be, which is frustrating, but you know, other than that, I think it was smooth sailing.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Take a listen.
Holy shit.
Just seeing it all come together is it's a great part about it. Like the first week we went in, we did scratch tracks for the guitars, and it just sounded like, you know, just guitars recorded. And then Teresa came in and did her drums, and I did the bass, and it sounded a little bit more complete. And then we did the actual guitar tracks and sounded a little bit more complete. And then Zach did his leads and Johnny did his vocals, and it sounded amazing. When I write bass parts, usually I will take the root notes of all the chords that are being played, and then I'll put my own spin on them. I do that just to keep the bass line meaty, so it doesn't sound empty. It just sounds a little bit more full if I get the root notes in there too. There was one song, I think Throwbacks, where I was doing a bass part and I added my own spin to it, and the rest of the band didn't really like it, so we just went with the root notes on that one, because sometimes you just gotta keep it simple.
You know what's more important? Making sure the song sounds right.
Yeah.
Making sure that it's balanced, that everything sounds good. Sometimes that means your instrument taking the back seat.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means that maybe you don't hear it. But the one thing I've always challenged everybody with, especially bass players, me being a bass player, be able to say, turn off the bass in the track and listen to it. Listen to it with the bass in the track where you couldn't hear the bass. Turn it off and then listen to it. It's completely empty.
Right.
The bass is there. It's just filling the role it needs to fill. It needs to sit in that space where it keeps the song from sounding thin.
I've been playing guitar 7 years, so like not crazy long, but long enough for me to develop a certain sense of feeling whenever I play that I can really portray on my guitar. It's not an instrument to me anymore, it's an extension of my body. That's pretty much how I vision it. I write what I feel. I never just like, oh yeah, like this is cool. I'm like, if I can't feel it, I won't use it in a song. And cause like, that's like sort of like what being a lead guitarist is. It's not the most important thing like an all-rock shoegaze band, but it adds so much, and like when you take it out, you really notice it. And if I don't feel the emotions, I don't really think the listener will. I try to like clear my mind a little bit so I can like go in there and I can be calm and I can record. So like when I was doing Rainy Day, it was like, that was a really sad song. And I was like, I really need to feel sad to write this. So I felt really sad. I channeled my inner feelings when I was in the studio. I took like a minute, I closed my eyes, I was just like, this is it. I felt it and I recorded it, and that was it. Like, I need to really feel what it is. And if I can't feel my lead, I won't use my lead. Certain like sound that I really only like creating with pedals is like some really weird noises. Johnny's really big in that. I'm not. He got me into it, but like putting in some weird noises is really cool, especially at the end of a song. I think we had like maybe a minute of just feedback, and I took my guitar, I put on, it was a Holy Grail reverb, and I think it was a DD7 delay. I took my guitar and I just yelled into one of the pickups, and it created the weirdest sounds ever. Like you can actually hear me yelling into the guitar. When we picked a lot of the songs that we had written, we picked what really helps depict, you know, the story. We have like a super delicate songwriting process, you know, like I'll get super twisted and come up with like a super great riff, and then we'll come in and, you know, everyone might or might not be happy with it. If we're happy with it, we'll like build from there. I never come with a full song because I can't write a full song without everybody.
Is this that last part?
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like it's this little thing, and then the last riff going out.
My favorite way of doing it is just coming up with a riff, coming in, and then, you know, I see what Teresa has to do with it, and we'll play the song maybe 100 times, and then Zach will just find something that feels good. He's someone who, you know, he needs to feel the riff. If he doesn't feel the riff, he might not be able to do anything with it, and a lot of time that could, you know, hold us back and makes me think, well, if my riff can't have someone else feel, how's anyone else gonna get anything out of it?
I think that's what I'm going for, sort of. Like, I want to do it's not shoegaze, but it's like what Siamese Dream was to alt rock. Like, it was alt rock, but it was kind of like shoegaze. I don't know if that, but like with a million other things involved. Like, I want like a weird doomy sound to the
Like,
bass.
is
over
Alice
the
in Chains a
gritty.
metal band or an alternative band?
But,
What is Alice in
exactly,
Chains?
exactly. And with the sprinkle of like that acid, like I want to bring the elements of the acid rock that Pink Floyd did, something like that, that really trippy, monumental idea, to like alt rock shoegaze, like, you know what I mean, as psychedelic as possible.
I like
to tell a
big
story.
grandiose. I like big grandiose songs.
Keeping the Shutter sound per se is like really important to me, because ever since the beginning, like, I kind of had an idea, or we kind of had an idea of the way we wanted to sound. Switching up your sound is good, but a lot of times you can go, that was a great album, but that wasn't them. And we try to stick really tried and true to our sound, but like build more on top of it. What I like to sound like is just this big fuzzy wall of sound. I don't use traditional amp distortion because I think it's like not enough. I like creating like almost what you hear in your dreams, like when you're tripping out, like, you know, I like stacking so many different things, and what kind of gives me the ability to do that are a bunch of the pedals. Like, I like fuzz pedals. I'm a big fan of the Big Muff pedal, and I use a lot of reverbs, delays, you know, and I love stacking things. Like, I'll never just have one pedal on. That's just not the way that I kind of approach things. Like, I like having an overdrive with the fuzz and maybe a reverb before or after, and it almost helps expand the sound. Like, I like the huge wall of sound. It gives you more to grasp onto when you hear it. I like clicking play on a track and having endless options. The whole idea of an album that goes back to back is different, you know. On our EP, we really touch basis with ambient noises and drones, because like a lot of the times, you know, when you don't really think about it, the static in the back of your head is really telling you something. And you know, we really wanted to fill up like a certain frequency, so you're always listening to something. You're never just listening to one guitar. There's like 12 of them stacked on top of each other.
Right here.
I like that so much. I did.
I fucking got that. I got him dabbing.
My mom loves
When I sit down and write the songs, I don't write full blast out lyrics. I write a lot of poems, and I get sprints of inspiration left and right. Like when I'm sitting down, sometimes I could literally be, you know, home, I could be at work, but sometimes I just get like really catchy lines in my head, and I kind of throw everything together. It's like a giant Scrabble game, and sometimes I just listen to the music and I just sing. I would write down like one line and elaborate from there, and it really benefited because, you know, you speak from the heart rather than paper. A difficult part, especially on the day of vocals, I was struggling a lot to just kind of get in key and warm up, because, you know, vocals are one of those things that guitar, you kind of know your parts, but vocals, there's just so much speculation as to what could be done, what can't be done, and then you also have to think like, oh, how am I going to put harmonies on this? How am I going to make it sound like this? we took a very different approach for vocals on this album rather than what we have done before. The vocals weren't as upfront, they're a lot more spacey, and I tried my hardest to really just bring out the emotions in the vocals.
I think you should slow down. I hope to disappear. I don't think it needs to be.
I hope to disappear. I hope to disappear.
Yeah. So you ascend, and then you'll descend here, and then here you'll have a weird descending, ascending, like, I hope to disappear. And then like trail it off, and then you're ready.
I had to really revisit what a lot of these songs were about, and sometimes that's not really like a safe place to go, but you know, I had the band there for me, I had my friends and everybody there for me. You know, a lot of the songs have to deal with depression and like really just losing yourself to the point of where you have to escape, like there's no other option. I had to bring those emotions onto the microphone. Like a lot of times it's easy to put, you know, ideas in your head, but when it comes time to put pen to paper, you're really at a loss for words. So when you really listen to the vocals, you'll really hear, you know, me at my kind of my worst, if you will.
Pick me up before that. I want that goodbye there. Like that's really cool. Can you just pick me up before that, just so like I can like jump in? You know what? Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. I would be really comfortable there.
I'll make sure that you start recording right after that goodbye. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you'll come in right after, right?
Okay.
All right.
A lot of things people don't know about recording music are how challenging it could be to get along with everybody, because you have one idea and you're sold on it. You're like, it has to sound good. But it's politics at the end of the day. Like, it is a democracy. My opinion is just as important as everybody else's. But, you know, you think that, but when it comes down to it, you're like, no, my idea is so fucking great. You have to love it. But, like, I've come to realize that a lot of times, if everybody doesn't like it, there might be a problem with it. You need to be able to come out with an idea that everybody can agree on and say, wow, that's great. Because if the 4 people in your band can't all agree that it sounds good, how are the fans gonna feel?
Writing all the songs, having to push a bunch to the side, then having to like, not have an argument with the band, but like pretty much having an argument with the band to see which one we liked more, like what part would work better, and like if we disagreed or not. That's pretty much all it was. That was the hardest part of this album. Just like getting to agree on what we wanted to do for a song. Because obviously we're all different people, we all have different opinions. So it's like more difficult to agree on a topic, but at the end of the day, we're a unit, so it was awesome.
Recording is very fun, most of the time. Sometimes you want to rip each other's faces off, but usually we just all have a good time, chill together. We don't really get to do that a lot because everybody works, so the time we had together was great.
This album took a lot out of us, especially, you know, we're there 10 to almost 8 every weekend for like a month and a half, and we've worked really, really hard, and we've thought a lot about the way that we wanted this to be and how it came out. You know, there was definitely a lot of arguing, you know, while we were writing the album because everybody wanted it to be perfect. There were a lot of times where we just kind of all had to go outside and be away from each other because, again, it's really frustrating to sit in a room with the same people kind of nitpicking each other, so we get the most perfect take. It's fun, but at the same time, it's just a lot of long days.
So tired.
You're most likely gonna pass out in the studio, and we all did at least at one point. I mean, I remember David just falling asleep on the floor like a couple times. That's probably like the one thing that people don't know about is you're always gonna be passing out because you're there for, I think we mainly started 10 a.m., stayed till 8 p.m. That's a really long time. So we were all knocked out by the end because it's a really long process and it's hard, man.
One of the funniest moments in the studio was definitely, I mean, I guess we were all falling asleep in the studio. That's like a traditional trend, like everybody falls asleep in the studio.
I remember there was a time where Johnny passed out, and he passed out in a pose where he looked like a model for like a swimsuit model. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
The most rewarding part of making music is being able to put yourself out there in a way that you were never able to.
The most rewarding part of making music is probably doing for others what music has done for me when I was younger specifically. So it's great to kind of, you know, finally be on track to do what I've always wanted to do.
Making music to me is, it's more so like a feeling. Basically, like, if I didn't have music, I don't know what I would be doing.
Getting through like all the pain is pretty much what it's about for me. Like if I'm ever like sad, I'll be like, oh, you know, I'll just do something on my guitar, and it really helps.
Music just helps me get through a lot of stuff. If I'm ever feeling some type of way, I'll just write some music or listen to music.
I have like really bad anxiety, so like I'll just pick up my guitar and I'll be like, I feel so much better right now. It's pretty much what it means to me. Just like getting over my pain and trying to help other people get over theirs.
I think to me this album kind of means, most importantly, probably growth as a band, because, you know, we started at point A with Hues and Colors, which was a very long time ago, and the production quality was much different than what we have now and what we've been doing since then.
I get a lot of people messaging me saying that like Shutter's music helped them through a lot of stuff. And it's always a great feeling to have that said to you. So like, you get validation of what you're doing, you know, it's just not going nowhere.
I think that it's just so rewarding seeing people listen to the music and go like, this is something I listen to every day before work. This is something I listen to when I'm sad, and it helps me get me out of a ditch. Music is just so open to interpretation that you know, I feel like there's no prior discrepancy to how you should really take it. It's all the way you want to take it, you know, and I leave a lot of the songs open to interpretation because I can speak for myself, but I can't speak for others. I think it's just rewarding seeing other people smile when they listen to your music. Being at somebody who needed music at like a very dark time of my life, I hope that other people can find that.
Oh my God, the first day we were there, we ordered pizza and it took them 2 hours to get the pizza to the house, and it was so infuriating. I remember Ron recommended it, and I'm like, oh, all right, it sounds good, but 2 hours for a pizza.
Fucking hour and a half for sushi.
Oh my God. It took us a shorter amount of time to drive to a restaurant, place our order, wait, and then bring it back. Which I don't know, like, if that would take longer or not, but it's just like, really? These guys really gotta get better with their pizza, man.